Let us bow our heads. Oh, Heavenly Father, please bless the citizens of this island. Please keep our citizens, families, friends, and visitors safe as we go through this summer season. And help us prepare for the storm season yet ahead. We thank you for the men and women who serve the city with little recognition, but who are always there when the need calls. Please continue to watch over them and keep them safe as they perform their duties. Grant us wisdom as we conduct our city business tonight. For it is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Marie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Burgworth.
Here.
Councilmember Vitale.
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Ferenz.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Loftus.
Not present.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Present.
Administrator Tucker.
Here.
And Attorney Halverson.
Here.
Very good, thank you. We're going to move on to reading of journal of previous meetings. You have in your package the regular meeting of May 27th and the special meeting we held on June 17th. I have a motion to approve or amend.
So moved. Second.
Motion to approve and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard, motion carries. Thank you. All right, shuffling a lot of paper today. Citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens that would like to address council at this time? Golden opportunity. Sun is still up. All right, we'll move on. No citizen comments this time. Move on to reports from standing committees. You have a catch-up minutes. I hope you realize the minutes you got from Ways and Means was from May 20th. I hope that wasn't a surprise for you. And we don't have the minutes yet because they were extensive from our last week, but I'll try and do this in somewhat of an ad lib form. We first heard from our treasurer when we met on the 17th. Our revenue is 86% of budget, which is 103% of prior year. As you may know, at 11 months, we should be at 92%. So we're doing fairly well, but not quite up to target. But June is usually a very productive month from a revenue standpoint, since we receive two big payments from both insurance and utility fees. Our expenses are, well, let me just comment on property taxes. With the payment that was received, that was reported by our treasurer, we are at $4,236,000 against a budget of $4,286,000. So we're $50,000 short of being on budget, but we have 2 months remaining, May and June. Not stellar months, but should put us very close to being on budget from a property tax standpoint, which is good. That was a concern a while ago, and so the fact that we're this close should give us some chance to get some sleep we may not have had a few months ago. So our expenses after 11 months are running at 88% of budget against the 92% target. Last year we were running at 86% of budget, and we should be close to, if not under budget, by year end. Our tourism funds, May municipal accommodations tax year-to-date is running now at 8% ahead of prior year. And our third quarter state accommodations tax is running at 8% ahead of prior year. And our hospitality tax through May is up 8% over prior years. So 8% seems to be the threshold of what's going on in the tourism industry. And I have another comment on that later in the day, but so that's very good news from the standpoint of our tourism funds. We had no significant changes in our project status, so we moved on to review the FY15 budget. We took a great deal of time, again, as we have done over the last series of months, to review the budget in detail. We had a great deal of discussion on the fire rescue vehicle, the discussion of its ISO rating impact, what would happen if we delayed it, what would happen if we didn't delay it, funding, etc., and we voted to keep it in the FY15 budget. We discussed needs for fund balances in our capital fund and made no change from the budgeted amount that's there. We considered signage, in particular the use of digital signs and moving them into the FY15 budget. And Ways and Means voted not to include funding in the FY budget for digital signs. We did task staff to work with Stantec in the wayfinding project that they have ongoing and the signage budget that they have to see what they can do for signage in the 2 gateway areas, in addition to the signage that we were hoping to be putting up elsewhere on the island. But whatever they come up with, it's not going to be digital signage. So that was moved forward. Council spent a great deal of time going over the budget both last week and over the last series of months. I can't even remember how many months we've been at this, since February, I guess.
Correct.
So since February through June, at least once or twice a month, we've been dealing with the budget in detail, either at committee level or Ways and Means or here at Council. I'm frankly quite pleased that the participation of staff, participation of council members in understanding and dissecting all our sources of revenue, all our expenses, and all our funds. So there's been quite a learning and exhausting experience that everybody has had in that process, but I think we're all better off for having done it. We found a way through the budget, as you the public should know, that we've added to our fire staff earlier this year and added to the salaries for our fire staff and the rest of the city staff that was out of whack with surrounding communities. And we found a way in the budget before us to pay for that without having to raise property taxes. I cannot predict what's going to happen in the future, but everybody is concerned, as I am. But we have paid a great deal of time and attention to the personnel and their needs, and we're able to do it within the constraints that are put before us, and we haven't been able to raise taxes. I'm certain, council and staff will continue to provide the great services that we provide to the citizens of this island with as low a burden as possible as we go forward. But we're now at the point, as we will shortly, to conclude our budget activity, I hope, for this year. We're in the final hours. Frankly, we're almost running out of June, and I don't want to close the city down. Not having a budget by the end of the 1st of July would frankly be distressful, because we would basically close the city services down. And we've extended ourselves beyond what we normally do, but I think it's been fruitful, and I'm looking forward to consideration of passing the budget further on tonight. In addition to the budget, we considered the Marina Outpost lease renewal and amendments thereto, and approved and asked staff to work with the leaseholders at the Marina Outpost to enter into, I guess, a negotiation to amend the lease and bring it in line with the recommendations from the Real Property Committee and go forward from there. We don't need a motion here, do we?
There was not a motion at Ways and Means. My recollection was that it was sent back to committee.
Okay, so they'll work with it further there. We did take up the subject of the beach preservation fee. This is a recent act provided to us by the state legislature. It's a beach preservation act. By their standards, we call it a beach preservation fee. This is a case where we can create an opportunity to add 1% to accommodations on the island, collect that fund, and that fund is used exclusively for beaches and beach accesses, to preserve the beaches and to keep them safe and healthy for future generations. So I'd like to make a motion here that we ask staff to prepare an ordinance which will be subject to a referendum of voters on the island that would create the beach preservation fee in line with the act passed by the legislature.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Motion carries. Thank you. We also took up the other act that came out of the legislature this year. Many times the legislature does stuff and we don't even know about it. Luckily, this one came upon us, and it works in our favor, so I was happy to find this out. It was actually the last-minute action by the legislature as far as making it visible to us. It was filed this year and passed this year. It's known as the Fairness in Lodging Act. It's an act which, well, I'm going to make a motion to request the staff prepare an ordinance implementing the Fairness in Lodging Act as authorized by the legislature. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
And the act allows us by ordinance to, again, following the requirements, to notify people who are renting their property without proper licenses and proper payment of taxes to the state, county, or the city for such an action, to implement a fine, if you will. And that fine can be, in the all scheme of things, relatively significant. But it also allows us to work with the Department of Revenue and share information on both sides. We've never been reluctant to share with the Department of Revenue. They have been reluctant to share with us. Am I saying that right? But this act allows that to happen more freely, and will give us some more teeth in making sure that everybody who's renting their property is paying the appropriate taxes, as most of the properties on the island do. But I'm certain there are a few that try and get away with it. So, any other discussion on that? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. We moved on to set our next meeting, July 15th at 5:45. So that's my report from Ways and Means.
You have a couple items.
Oh, two other items. These are items.
Yeah, and there's a couple questions down here.
We had a discussion about possible referendum question for November about the maintenance of taking over the maintenance of the roads.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't put it on this. We can bring it up, but since we discussed it, I want to have that discussion at the next Ways and Means Committee meeting, because I think we need to understand what that means as far as how we would fund that. We have some limitations put on us by the state as far as how we could collect any funding for owning the road. So if you don't mind, or you
Well, that's
discuss it
fine. I
further
just want to
tonight.
make sure that
No, we're not.
we
Follow
let
this
people
item?
know that we're on it.
Okay.
Okay.
We entered into a discussion, as Jimmy said, to look further into taking over control of the roads on the island from the state and what all that entails. And so, as I indicated, I would like to carry that on at Ways and Means, because it will be a significant financial component of the city if we take on the roads, independent of just administration. So, in addition, I'll go to the award of the John Deere, the amount of $26,604.55. This is under the state contract for 2 ATVs for the fire department. This was included in the budget at $26,620, so it's $15.45 under budget. Good going. People don't realize the budget. Well, okay, fine. So I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion on the John Deere's? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. You have on the agenda, because we took open bids, award of, the consideration for award of signs for the digital signs, but since we have not budgeted funds for that, I'm proposing we abandon that initiative. Is that the proper term?
I think there should probably be some sort of action, actually maybe a motion that doesn't get seconded or something that gets...
I'll make a motion that we delete the digital sign from the budget.
It's
That's
not in there.
already budgeted.
All right.
It's already out of the budget.
Just making sure.
This has to do with awarding the contract. We took bids. We actually had this on another agenda, and I think we delayed the award at that meeting, and so now it has reappeared on the agenda, and it's just an unfinished piece of business. I think council has made it clear what their position is, but we just need to close the loop, I think.
Can't we abandon the item? We've taken bids.
Got a
I
contractor
guess-
dangling out there.
Yeah, I guess you need to take formal action to reject all bids because the city is going in a different
Okay.
direction. it sounds
I'll make a
like.
motion, we reject all bids and not consider digital signs in the
Second.
future. Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that carries. We had a discussion, Jimmy reminded me about the roads, but I did put on here a discussion of moving public work operation to location off the island. I thought that would be worthy of further development. So you want to expound on your...
Well, I'll just repeat just my own personal experience and just a couple of comments and just something to chew on. And it's something I've been looking at and thinking about since my first term sitting on this council in 1988 to 1991. In 1989, the connector was approved and it was opened in 1993. Before that time, this was the center of the island, and the Public Works Department and City Hall was next door, and the police department and fire department all in a tiny little building, and that was the appropriate use for that space. But when the connector opened, built City Hall, tore down the old City Hall, but the Public Works building is sitting right underneath the connector. And we are, I just want to get discussion going on it. We are living in one of the most exclusive communities in South Carolina, probably the Southeast. And we have the beach companies invested in a beautiful new shopping center on the left when you approach the island, when you come onto the island. And on the right, whereas Donnie Pitts and the Public Works Department and the city administration have done a great job of camouflaging that building, it's still a steel building that could not get approved to be built anywhere else on the island. And it's the Public Works Department, and you don't have to look too hard in the evenings before dark, and the first thing, if you look to the right, you see 5 garbage trucks and other equipment, and that's what first thing you see. So I know it's a big process, but we're getting ready to spend a lot of money that we need to spend. We've got to get in compliance with, I can't remember the acronym.
NPDES.
That's it. And but my personal experience, I'll make it as quick as possible. I grew up in a little small town in eastern North Carolina called Kinston. It only had about 25,000 people living in it, and I haven't been there in many years, but I'd go back to visit my parents when they were alive. And there, even they were a small little dusty eastern North Carolina village, they had the Public Works Department 7 miles, approximately 7 miles outside of town, that they bought county land outside of town. Now, I just would like the citizens to know that there's some interest from me on council at looking at this for the future, because if we're going to invest this money, we know, but hopefully that we can find some land that would be appropriate, and we move the Public Works Department off the island. The city could sell the property for a major profit, and the 2 lots behind it that were bought in December 2006 for $1 million, and have nice shops or a park or something like that. And thank you very much for your time. That's what I'm looking at.
I don't think that's a dead subject. We'll carry on. I don't know how long it's going to take.
Right. If it can even happen. I just want to...
Okay. Nothing else for Ways and Means. We'll move on to Public Safety.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Safety Committee met Monday, June 2nd. First thing we talked about was the budgets, which we have in front of us tonight, and talked about the consideration of the reservation of funds policy. Talked about that for a long time. We also discussed traffic counters. It appears the counters will not be installed by July 1st. We're still waiting to hear back from SC.
They might make it. Depends on the weather,
Okay.
depends on...
We heard back from
but we're
close.
close.
DOT then.
We're close.
So we may need to move that into next year's budget. Maybe not, hopefully not. Talked about the digital signs, which we just voted on. We also discussed the ticket writers that we were to get as part of our court system. This was the second part of the court system software and all. The company has indicated that they have them and they work, however, we don't have ours yet. So we have asked their vendor to meet with the Public Safety Committee meeting at our next scheduled meeting to explain that to us as to why we have not received those, and if we're not going to get them in a reasonable length of time, we would probably request our money back. And we also moved to put $18,000 in the FY15 budget as a holder, just in case we need to purchase others while we were dealing with this issue. Talked about a possible amendment to the animal control ordinance to prohibit the tethering of dogs. We've had a few people that are concerned about that. The chief seems to think that our ordinance covers it. So we've asked the chief to talk to his animal control officers, get their feeling on the ideas. And the other thing we talked about was dogs on the beach during the daytime, and the fact that folks need to make sure if they're there during the daytime, they need to have water and shelter for them. We'll also be talking to the animal control officers about that. And we've asked to do some more public education relative to dogs being on the beach in the hottest part of the day. We discussed the shopping center ingress and egress. If you're coming out of the shopping center and turning left, it can be a challenge. It always was. It's busier now, so it's more of a challenge. SCDOT approved what's out there. My understanding that they were presented a couple of options by the developer. So we contacted, city administrators contacted SCDOT again and is waiting for a response. And speaking of the shopping center, for those of you that have golf carts on the sidewalk from 21st to the shopping center have become a problem. There have been some near misses. We'll probably see some no golf carts on sidewalks signs. And as you know, you can't drive a golf cart on 703, which is Palm Boulevard. So there's kind of a dilemma there. We just approved the ATVs. And I'll move on to the highlights of the departmental reports. I'll start with the fire department. They responded to 127 calls, 30 of which were EMS calls. In the first 2 weeks of May, there were multiple water missions. 18 people were pulled out of the rip currents, and a total of 43 were pulled out of rip currents or received other assistance. It's going to be a very busy summer. Sadly, we've had one drowning this year. May 2nd, personnel responded to a call in Wild Dunes. 2.5-week-old baby had stopped breathing and was blue. Gone into cardiac arrest. When personnel arrived, fire department personnel revived him. Kudos to the fire department. Those guys are good and know what they're doing. We had a very good disaster recovery exposition thanks to the fire department and Captain Maybank, who organized the event. For the police department, Bobcat was stolen from Wild Dunes. I don't know if it was ever recovered. A safe was stolen from Wild Dunes, and a subject has been identified, and detectives are working on leads on that. They held a meet and greet at 3504 Cameron Boulevard at the request of the residents, and 15 people attended. First coffee with a cop was May 24th at Joe's To Go, and they met with approximately 30 residents and visitors. It was about a 2-hour meeting. These are very good programs. Chief said Memorial Day traffic wasn't too bad, but we all know what it can be. And I asked if the light at Rifle Range and the connector had been adjusted since the widening, and that has happened. During the month of May, dispatchers responded to 6,132 calls. Of the total, 4,799 were for the police department. There were 450 traffic stops, where 110 of those resulted in tickets. As far as livability, the officers wrote 19 warnings for noise violations and 1 citation. We're challenged at this time of the year with traffic. Bear with us if you live on the island. Be careful going down Palm Boulevard. We don't have our full complement of BSOs yet. The chief is having trouble getting people that can pass all the necessary background checks and all that are required to hold that job. And Chief Graham reported on Mother's Day, as an aside, with 5 wrecks and 4 water missions in an hour-and-a-half time span. So we're keeping all of our public safety folks on their toes. Our next meeting will be in August 7th at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Having read through the reports, I know that both fire and police put reports out, and I want you to know we read them, first of all. And I'm pleased that we've added to the fire staff, because I noticed through 5 months of this year, our fire calls are up 24% over the average of the prior 4 years. That's a significant increase. It's actually a much higher percentage than last year, but if you take an average of the last 4 years and look at what we've done this year, it's up 24%. That's a huge number of increased calls, and from what I can tell and what I've witnessed personally, calls are not diminishing in the month of June. So I'm glad we're staffed, and kudos to the team for all of the missions, whether they be water or not, that they're called upon to accomplish. Thank you. Any other comments for public safety? All right, Public Works, please.
Thank you, sir. Public Works Committee met 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, June 4, 2014. All members were in attendance. We had the maintenance, trash collection, tracking reports from Director Pitts. On May 23rd, personnel deployed the recycling bins on the beach, and every indication, everything we hear, they're busy, and it's been a huge success. So congratulations to the Public Works Department on that. Garbage was down about 10 tons for the previous month, but yard debris was up about the same amount. So we reviewed the fiscal year 15 budgets in consideration of reservation of funds policy. It was a long, lengthy discussion. It all accumulated in the motion by Councilmember Ferenz to move to defer the replacement of the rescue truck to fiscal year 16 and reduce the 14 and 15 reservation of funds to half of the purchase price, or approximately $114,450. And upon further discussion, we decided to not take any action on it. We pulled the motion, and there was a suggestion from the committee that Public Works should make this deferral as just a recommendation to the Ways and Means Committee. And we discussed under new business yard debris operation, and specifically there's a couple of issues that we go through every year with Wild Dunes, with the CAT operation in the claw-fronted vehicle that picks up the debris and puts it in a truck. And there's a couple people, several people that are upset, and we're having to deal with that issue. And Director Pitts has done a thorough investigation and study about this and what is the difference. And it concluded that we have a very experienced 15-year veteran CAT operator, and we had no complaints about these issues until 2 years ago. But then he says that when we went to the paper bags instead of the plastic bags, the paper bags, they just fall apart. And so it takes a lot more time for the personnel to clean up all the debris, and sometimes they don't have the time to make it pristine and perfect. And that's where the the confusion comes in. Much more discussion was about it. The mayor was informed of the situation, and his reaction was that possibly the community association could hire someone to follow behind the city's crew. And I think the committee concurred with that. Then we went on to update on Front Beach lighting. Long discussion about that. The committee is enthusiastically behind this project, and we'd like to see it come to fruition as soon as possible. And the committee, it was stated SC&G will pay in half of the cost of the project through the non-standard service clause. And that's the way it appears, sharing the cost in the fiscal year 15 budget. The treasurer commented, she was at the meeting, that the city has budgeted $75,000 for the grounding of lines and $50,000 for Front Beach lighting. And we moved and passed unanimously the Shepherd's Crooks type of lighting fixture. And this has been a big problem. It's hard for people to see coming out of the restaurants and stuff down there at night, and it's a dangerous situation. Plus the personnel that are leaving the establishments, if they're going to make a bank deposit, is kind of a nerve-wracking experience. So we're hoping, we're pushing hard, and I know the city administrator is doing everything she can to have this completed by next season at the latest. Councilmember Loftus repeated that he wanted to ensure the infrastructure is in place to support future lighting enhancements at Front Beach, which the committee is strongly behind. That was about it. Director Pitts informed the committee that 43rd Avenue Alley and 45th Avenue Alley were paid by the Isle Ponds Water and Sewer Commission. Our next meeting date will be 5:30, Wednesday, August 6th.
Any questions for Public Works? No? Nothing heard? Okay, Recreation Committee, please.
Mr. Mayor, Recreation met on June the 2nd at 5 p.m. All members were present. There were no citizens' comments. Director Page gave her report. We had a small minor incident at the middle school dance on May the 30th. Our recreation staff is looking at better ways to handle future dances. There are no more dances for this summer, so that'll resume in the fall. The spring adult sports were in the process of tournaments and have since concluded. Fun was had by all. Youth baseball had its final game on June the 2nd. We had over 231 participants in various baseball programs. We had a lively youth dodgeball pickup games. We have athletic camps planned for every week this summer, including soccer, basketball, volleyball, lacrosse, tennis, and for all ages in tennis. Some programs have ceased for the summer, but Bosu, Mahjong, yoga, and Zumba will continue with their popularity. All camp summer shrines are full. The fire department provided CPR training for our camp counselors before we started. We thank them for their efforts on that. The Piccolo Spoleto Sand Sculpting Contest was a success. Some almost needing a building permit, they were so large. We had 54 teams, and some teams were 2, 3, 4 people, so that's a lot of participants. The upcoming events, the 4th of July fireworks display. We have our July 19th IOP Beach Run with 5K and 10Ks fun runs. I'm sorry to report I won't be here for this year's event, but I know other committee members and council members will be there to support, if not compete. That's a challenge, Mr. Mayor. Recreation staff...
You're going to be running somewhere else.
Quickly. Recreation staff has been busy with all these events, with their programs, with the building and the grounds. And as always, a job well done. We've planted some oak trees along the 27th Avenue baseball field to help screen it out. It looks good. It'll take a few years for them to start growing, but looking at the other trees down there, it's a beautiful location. Under old business, we discussed our fiscal 2015 operating budget. We had a 3% increase, but due to global increases that we have beyond our control, such as insurance, and we only had 2 line item increases. Those are part-time wages for staff due to increased program usage and $3,500 for a gym floor that needs to be done. We have capital purchases due that will only happen upon failure, such as HVAC and scoreboards. Again, we won't do that unless they fail. We have scheduled replacement and upgrades to our camera surveillance system and special project to redo our multi-purpose baseball field. It's $100,000, and we talked about delaying it, but it really needs to be done. So the Recreation Department is going to use half of it from the building fund and half from capital projects. We have another $20,000 identified for porch ceilings, posts, and ceilings. There was no new business. Under miscellaneous business, Councilman Harrington asked about ADA-approved boardwalks to the beach. We discussed that at length, but more discussions, and we'll look into it. Our next meeting is scheduled for August the 5th at 5 p.m. A motion was made to adjourn with a unanimous approval. So ends my report.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Any questions for the Rec Committee, please? All right, let's move on to Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Mr.
Cindy.
Mayor. The regular meeting of the Personnel Committee was held at 10 a.m. Tuesday, June 3rd. The minutes were unanimously approved. We then reordered our agenda to discuss first the vacancies on boards and commissions, and secondly, consideration of committee structure before status-wide staffing. The committee then went into executive session, discussed candidates for the Code Board of Appeals, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Planning Commission to fill unexpired terms. We will reconvene in August to do the full terms. Coming out of executive session, Councilman Harrington moved to recommend Bill Mills to fill the unexpired term on the Planning Commission. So therefore, Mr. Mayor, I bring the recommendation to the full council and move that Bill Mills fill the unexpired term on the Planning Commission.
I have a motion and a
Second.
Second. Any discussion on filling the position? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
We then had a short discussion on consideration of our committee structure. And after some discussion, we came to the conclusion that because of procedural reasons, committees cannot be expanded. We were looking at trying to expand committee structure so that there would be more discussion and sort of more eyes on the prize type of thing. By staying at 3, the committee chair is still challenged to make the balance of council feel informed enough that they have the information they need to cast an informed vote. And that was the reason for looking at that kind of expanded committee structure. We talked about, as we make motions and as we have discussion, that we not just bring it to the council, but we explain why, so that the why is just as important as the vote. We then returned back to our original order and talked about the status of citywide staffing. At this time, City Hall has no vacancies. The Building Department has no vacancies. Public Works has no vacancies. There are 4 vacancies in the Recreation Department. A Recreation Supervisor as of July 4th, 2 part-time Recreation Assistants as of July 1st, and a part-time Recreation Assistant as of August 1st. In the Police Department, there are 4 vacancies, 2 officers, 1 Beach Patrol officer, and Animal Control officer. And as of a couple of minutes ago, I have not known of any other fire vacancies. No vacancies in the fire department. Reason I didn't know that because I was on the road. Discussion of the FY15 budget. We too had a long discussion about the reservations of the funds policy, and we felt that it was pretty well exhausted by the time we got out of Ways and Means. We did discuss the adjustments to frozen wage and adjustments to comparative wage ranges, and that was passed in our Ways and Means and is now part of the FY15 budget. In that, we were expanding the ranges of our salaries from 40% to 50% from the low end to the high end. And that will enable those folks that have been at the top end and not able to get merit increases to receive merit increases. We then went to recalling that we had a timeline that we were following in terms of the various projects that we were working on. And one of the timelines required that we complete by June of 2014 the measurable goals for the calendar 2015 for our city administrator. Well, it's already June, so we just wanted to make sure that we didn't wait until December to do that, because it won't do her any good. So we are putting that on our agenda for the next meeting. Our next meeting date is 10 a.m. Tuesday, July 1st, in the conference room. The meeting was adjourned at 12:18 p.m. And our sweepstakes winners for this month: in Recreation Department, Holly Norton; Police Department, Dylan Reynolds; Public Works, Joseph Ankrum; and Fire Department, Dustin Scott.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any questions for personnel? All right, let's move on to Real Property Committee. Michael's not here, so Linda, you got the duty.
Okay, yes, unexpectedly, we learned that Michael was not going to be here. The Real Property met this last month jointly with the Planning Commission. The full length of the meeting was roughly 2.5 hours. Most of that was devoted to the initial meeting with the Planning Commission for the purpose of tasking the Planning Commission with looking at the marina enhancement endeavor and working towards coming up with a comprehensive multidisciplinary request for proposals, and then going forward working with the selected consultant on identifying phases for marina enhancement, cost of those, prioritizing the needs there, and even going forward to do a pro forma to determine how we could pay for those needs, and in fact perhaps maximize some revenues out of the marina by some adjustments to some of the relationships there. So that discussion took up a good length of time because there were many comments that needed to be made by the two consultants that have been working on this, John Tarkany and John Schaefer, as well as some of the marina tenants. So a very large portion of the meeting was spent in that initial dialogue, which was quite a good one. And I'm anticipating that the Planning Commission will be sinking their teeth into that beginning the upcoming month, thus the importance for filling the vacancy that exists on that commission. We also had some discussion regarding the budget, as did all committees of council. And then we also discussed the upcoming possibility of a beach restoration project. As you all know, we are experiencing some erosion on the northeast end of the island. We have a shoal attaching, which causes some rather dramatic activity until it attaches. As it begins to get close, the city and the stakeholders have the opportunity to help Mother Nature along and take that sand that's getting close and spread it along the shoreline to restore the beach to a healthy condition in that area. The committee made a motion to put $200,000 in the budget for FY15 out of money that is in savings or in reserve in the beach maintenance fund, and that is included in the draft of the budget that you all will be considering tonight. There was an amendment that was discussed to that motion of reducing the amount to $125,000, but that amendment did not get a second, so $200,000 was what moved forward. There was some discussion of marina lease amendments. It is basically the marina outpost is coming up for renewal. They have indicated that they wish to renew. There was some discussion related to that lease renewal, and there was a motion to renew, and that was further discussed later at the Ways and Means Committee a week ago, and it will go back to committee for some future discussion. And the next meeting is scheduled for July 7th at 5:30 p.m. I do maybe want to make a comment now. Everyone is announcing their next meetings, and later on the council agenda, there's going to be some consideration and discussion of the possibility of moving some of those meetings around. So some of those, just for the public's knowledge, some of those dates may change. Important to check the city's website, www.iop.net, in advance of attending any meeting to check for rescheduling.
Good. Any questions for real property? None heard. Okay, moving on. Reports from city office boards and commissions. Any questions on the no meeting with accommodations. Planning Commission, of course, we heard from real property. Periodically, we felt it worthwhile to update everyone on our efforts with the Charleston Visitors Bureau and CARTA, so I'll brief you on some of the things going on at the Charleston Visitors Bureau. They had a board meeting on May 28th. Airport passenger traffic is up 8% for the first period of this year. 8% seems to be the correct number. Maybe they're all coming here. I don't know. Everything's there. The Visitors Bureau board has approved a budget of $13.3 million for their efforts for the coming year. $3.5 million of that is destination-specific marketing money that is awarded from the state. The state allocates $12 million to the various communities that can demonstrate through their own funding, matching funds. Actually, it's $2 for every $1, but in Charleston area here, we were able to demonstrate $3.5 million, use $3.5 million out of the $12 million. So that's a good piece of change for the Visitors Bureau. The Travel Council, which is a subset of the Visitors Bureau, where membership for anybody who's in the food, lodging, travel business can be a member. It costs them money to be a member, but they participate, and therefore their company, their business, et cetera, gets proper recognition, et cetera. That's up 25% in the last year. There are over 500 members to the current Travel Council involved with the Visitors Bureau. So Charleston food and lodging industry is growing. JetBlue has now opened its leg between here and Washington. If you have any reason to go to Washington, I hope it's for visiting families and friends, and not just dealing with the political scene up there. But, and apparently the rates have been adjusted by competing airlines so that we're getting better rates in and out of the Charleston area. On the 9th and 10th of June, the Charleston Visitors Bureau hosted International Golf Tour Operators. Apparently, this is a fairly large group of people that book golf tours for other people. And they had well over 150 tour operators arrive in Charleston, spend 2 or 3 days here, got an opportunity to play the Ocean Course. Frankly, they were going to play the links course, but it was judged that having the links course lined with bags would not set the image that they wanted to have presented, so they went and played the Ocean Course, which is, of course, quite an accomplishment also. So that's moving ahead. They are proceeding and making progress on a vacation rental report, which I think Perrin has briefed the Accommodations Tax Committee on. This is something that's done in the city of Charleston and other geographic areas, but they're trying to get a handle on vacation rental activities in the greater Charleston area. And so they're now producing a report along with the College of Charleston looking at vacation rentals, which is principally the Isle of Palms, Folly Beach, and Kiowa. And eventually, if they can get enough participation from property management companies here on this island, they may be able to present us with a report that's purely island-specific. But it is a fairly detailed report showing the inventory of bedrooms 1 through 5, the inventory, how many nights have been sold, what's the sold rate, what's the average daily rate charged per property on average, et cetera. And they have 2 years of data now for again, it's not just for our island, it's for all 3 vacation activities. And if these numbers are real, which I don't have any reason to believe they're not, the average daily rate that people are paying for visiting us through May of this year is up substantially over last year. So rates are going up. Property management and property owners are taking advantage, I guess, of the economy, and that's helping to move our accommodations tax, among other things. So hopefully this continues to prove out and we get more participation. I know we just added a property management company on the island here to the rolls. So with a couple more, we may even get our own island specific. So that's what's going on in the Visitors Bureau. Any questions? Okay, let's hear about what's happening for Carter.
What's going on in Carter? Carter's still rolling on.
Okay.
You sound like the mayor now.
We had a board meeting on June 18th. As information, Jeff Burns, who's formerly with the COG, is our interim executive director. We're currently working on the budget. Our FY year begins October 1st. Proposed budget, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble talking, is about $28,500,000, just over. And Carter will be bringing these budgets out to the municipalities that participate in Carter for their approval. A little bit about the North Charleston Intermodal Facility. I think you're all familiar with where Amtrak is located on Gaynor Avenue. That's where the proposed new intermodal facility will be. A public hearing was held June 16th to gather input from the folks that live in that area. They had several questions about the roads nearby and how they were going to be impacted. That location will take care of Amtrak. I think it's Southeastern Stage, which is the old Greyhound, and there will also be taxis operating out of there. At the present time, looking in the future, the present time, the Amtrak terminal is only open when trains are coming in or leaving. That would be the same train. With the proposed new intermodal facility, this will be almost a 24-hour facility. We'll have security that will be much safer. I have some pictures that I'll share later on. I'll bring to City Hall to show what the proposed building will look like. We scaled it down. Don't really have new drawings yet, but they kind of took the design from the old railroad depot in Charleston and wanted to make it look similar to that, although not exactly. Current plans is that Carter will advertise for bids in April of 2015. And some miscellaneous things. The routes are reviewed on a monthly basis for ridership, what money they're making. As information, ridership for May was 431,201, which was an increase of 3.9% over last year. Revenue was up 20% from last year. System-wide cost per passenger is about $1.73. That compares to last year's $1.81. And I think one of the big things for our Carter system here is the fare box recovery for the system. It is, for last month, was 36.4%. In public transit systems, if the fare box recovery approaches 30%, they're considered to be doing well. That's not to say that every budget year is a stretch. It takes the feds about a year from the time they approve funds until they hit our coffers. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to get with you after the meeting or give me a call, and I'll be glad to share whatever information I have with you.
Jimmy?
I really appreciate these two reports. We haven't had them since I've been sitting on council this term, I have no idea what's been going on. So thank you very much. I hope it'll be a regular occurrence there.
Well, we may be removed from the Carter board.
Oh, really? Okay. Too much disclosure, huh?
Now, Marty, this was a couple of months ago, but with the census and
I did it. So hold his weight.
the urban boundary, they have certain requirements under federal law to serve the urban conditions. The urban boundary has moved, and therefore they're beyond Charleston if they're going to serve that, which means they would have to bring on board other municipalities. The charter, or whatever, the legal...
Charter specifies...
what communities are involved, which gets us involved. They may have to amend the charter, but right now, Keel is on it, they don't have any service. Sullivan's Island's on it, they don't have any service. We're on it, you know what service we get. So they may have, in order to include Somerville and others, they may have to drop a few or put us in a rotation, if you will. So we don't know where that's going to wind up, but...
And another informational thing, if you went by the loose guidelines that some folks would like to, could possibly use, they can end up with probably 30 or more,
everybody on
30 more people, additional people on the board, which is, you can't, that's not a board,
it's heavy right now.
That's an audience.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
On to Carter, in the future, I think we still need to start thinking outside the box when it comes to beach traffic. And I wish Carter would think about trying to bring people out to the beach as opposed to all these cars and the traffic that we get and the parking we get. So
Do you want to take it?
I'll take it. A couple of years ago, we did have a route that came over the beach. Very little, if any, usage. I walked the front beach, handed out, set stacks of brochures in the hotels and all, trying to get them to let people know what it is. That's kind of our end of it. People didn't want to use it. The other end is the Mount Pleasant end, or wherever they would load up at, which is a challenge to find places where people would be allowed to park to get on the buses to come over here. Maybe it's not a lot of cars, but we just recently moved from the express route boarding from Kmart to the Walmart.
I'm just thinking that, in the years to come, with parking changes and traffic changes, there may be a bigger need for...
We were so happy, Marty would remember more than I, probably 4 years ago, when they inaugurated a beach run with Carta. Big fanfare, etc.
Bus to the beach.
I don't know who. I was there.
Mr. Hamilton.
Hamilton, who's the advocate for bus travel. We were there to meet the bus at Front Beach. We had T-shirts. We had all sorts of stuff for those coming off the inaugural run. Bus driver only. There's nobody on the bus. Even Hamilton and others that said they were going to be there, they missed it for whatever reason. I don't know. There was nobody there. We're standing there with T-shirts to hand out, and nobody there to give them to us. So.
Thank you.
Oh, well, best laid plan. So we are very attuned to trying to get people to take other modes of transportation other than horse over to the islands. Okay, moving on. No other, turn to page 2, I guess. Bills already in possession of council. Second reading of ordinance 2014-03, an ordinance to raise revenue and adopt the budget, City of Isle of Palms, something we've talked about for quite a while. I'd like to make a motion to amend, see if I do this right, 2004-03, move it from the original first reading budget that was presented, which was pink. I'll go to the color scheme. Move to the FY15 budget, which is now, help me, what color is this? Purple. Looks blue to me. Blue to the, okay, it says purple, I should read it. To the purple version. So I'll make that motion to move to the purple version.
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
This is the reading, not the,
Yeah, we're moving to the purple
okay.
version.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Maybe I should clarify for everybody, what the motion is to amend the budget to include all of the changes, so that the budget that you will be considering will be the one with all of the changes from pink to purple.
Thank you.
Pink to purple, okay. All right, then I'll make a motion to adopt the purple budget for the City of Isle of Palms for the fiscal year July 1st, 2014, ending June 30th, 2015. I'll make a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Discussion, as I've said before, there's been a lot of labor, I won't say love, but a lot of labor put into this over the series of months. We're down to the final hour, and I hope we're able to do this and keep the city functioning into next week. So here we are. Any other discussion? Brian?
I got just one, Mr. Mayor. Part of drafting this budget, and it is a good budget, it's hard to, every year we're getting closer and closer to having to do some other revenue generators, but the majority of our expenses are personnel expenses in the city, and they do a phenomenal job. We went through and adjusted the payroll for the fire department, and because we felt bad that everybody didn't get a raise, went through and adjusted everybody's salaries. I mean, the city has its own in-house union bosses. The fact that they go through and automatically, expand the payrolls and increase wages, or there's probably really not a demand at the time. I know it was a small impact this next budget year, about $24,000, but what it's going to be down the road is it's going to be substantial. So it's just one thing we have to continue to look at is those expenses, and it's going to be a big problem with it.
Okay, other comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so we have no budget. The tie goes to the negative, so we have no budget. Now, where do we go from here?
Well,
we'll have to set-
the winning side could make a motion for reconsideration and make what recommendations for alterations that they would like to make to it in order to get this job done tonight.
For reconsideration would need to happen tonight, that's right.
Right, and the alternative to that would be to schedule
Set
another
another meeting.
special meeting. However, if attendance is the same, then on this version of the budget, I would expect that the result would likely be the same unless someone changes their mind or gets convinced otherwise between now and when that special meeting is
The thing
scheduled.
is, I don't want to shut the city down. We've got 5 days. Okay.
I'd like to go ahead and make on page 43 of the budget to make a motion that we half the city's contribution to.
Don't we need a motion for reconsideration
Do a
first?
motion for reconsideration. If you voted no,
Correct.
which I believe you did,
Yes,
then
ma'am.
you're the appropriate person to do it, so.
I'd like to make a motion for reconsideration of the budget.
Second.
We have a motion to reconsider. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead on page 43. This is one of the things I brought up during, is in the report, it mentioned that the Real Property Committee voted to spend money on and transfer more than half of its savings, basically, that we have in reserves for beach maintenance, and roll it over into a beach restoration fund. I understand that there's a small section, there's a section north end of the island that needs restoration, and I'm glad that we're able to go through and utilize some of the new legislation to start putting funds away for that. But to start putting more money in sand that we just got paid off, just recently, when we need to spread that throughout the island. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we half that $200,000 to $100,000.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Okay, any discussion? The project in question is going to be budgeted for $1,250,000.
Yes, sir.
And this was a 20% participation or less, and we participated at that rate in the past. And you're suggesting we participate at a 10% rate with accommodations tax money, which comes from the area that's in question.
It's a combination tax money that comes throughout from the entire island.
Well, correct.
No?
But
Okay.
over half of it comes from that area, so.
Well, it was a motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion? Any other discussion, first of all? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
Can you raise hand on nay, please?
So is that a tie or no? I
It's a
couldn't.
tie.
Okay. So it's a no.
That's a no. So we're in a reconsideration. Does anybody else have any other reconsideration? Timothy?
This is third year, this time that I've worked on this budget with council. Last year was probably the most frustrating that I've ever had at any time serving the community. And that, just have to state the facts, is that nobody wanted to budge on any single thing. Nothing. Will not reduce, just minuscule amounts of the budget. We need to reduce spending. We're headed down a tunnel, and it's not the light that we're seeing. It's another train coming right at us. Next year is reassessment year. People I've talked to have given every indication that more revenue, which means property tax increases for our residents, is on the table. This is not the time to be doing that. Our tourism-related funds keep going up and up. The revenues keep going up and up and up. And our spending goes up and up and up, even higher than the revenues that are coming in. We've offered, I can't speak for anybody else, some people have offered several adjustments that are not that necessarily material to this budget to get in the line, to give the citizens a message that we're trying in every way possible to defer expenses and to cut expenses as much as we possibly can. I asked this at the Ways and Means Committee, and I'm trying to do a quick calculation here, but it looks like to me from the pink budget to the purple budget, the general fund is going up. The expenditures are going up. General fund transfers are going down a little bit. Capital projects is up. Capital projects fund expenditures have gone up. And everything's going up except municipal accommodations tax expenditures went down some. But there was no negotiation during this process. Everybody just stood just firm, and they would not even consider it. They would consider it, but it was just no one would understand it. We have to cut expenditures. We are headed for a tax increase next year. If we don't do something about expenditures, we're spending all this money out of our tourism-related funds. It's meant to go for the operations of the city, but we can't keep spending more than we're bringing in. And that's all that I'm simply asking.
Okay, so you have no motion.
Yeah, we could be here all night. I'd like to defer acquisition of the fire truck that we talked about several times until at least next year, $229,000.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay. We discussed this ad nauseum just last week, so,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Is there any other discussion, any new information?
There's, let's give and take a little bit. Let's don't just like.
Yeah.
I'm for it. That particular one, we have the money, it's been put aside for the fire truck. It's going to cost more for the fire truck if we defer it. So I don't see how that's a savings in the budget. I mean, there may be other things. We could cut the front beach lights. I mean, that's a savings in the budget. That's $75,000 that didn't exist before. We could put off the ball fields at the rec center. That's $50,000. That's $125,000. But the fire truck is going to cost more if we wait. That's what I don't get. I don't see how that's a savings.
Maybe you can make a motion to some of your suggestions as we go along.
Well, let's go back to the mechanic.
No, stay on the motion. Stay on the fire engine.
Let's just stay on subject with this particular item.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
in conversations with the chief, she acknowledged that putting it off a year would be all right. She could keep it running with new springs at about $5,000 or $10,000. And I think if the chief agrees that it can be put off, then we should follow the recommendation of the chief.
But the rest of that conversation was that when we get to the buying the vehicle next year, it's going to cost us, what's the number, 15% more. So we haven't saved anything. The money's already there, so it's going to cost us more, and then in the long run, by not doing it this year. We put the maintenance into it, and we pay 15% more next year.
If we put the maintenance into it, we won't have to replace it.
Oh, so you
Not
don't want to
in another
replace it
year.
at all?
It's only got 40,000 miles on it,
Well, but miles on a vehicle like that.
and it's 16 years old. That's 2,500 miles a year. It's not something that we're using on a daily basis. And I've looked at the truck, and I've talked to the chief, and I feel confident that we can fix the truck as it is and get a couple more years out of it.
And if I may add, when we switched over to these capital purchases, instead of financing these trucks, we are creating a sinking fund. The first couple years of this process are the most painful. What we're trying to do is extend the first couple years, let us create these funds, and then get us back on a good fiscal track.
So because we're doing it this way, it's increasing our budget. Perhaps that's not the way to go. And we need to look at lease purchase again.
Well, the thing is,
We lease purchase because
We're not
we
gonna
didn't
go-
have
we're not
the
gonna
money to
go
begin
lease
with. Now we're trying to do the sinking fund. But if we do the sinking fund, everyone's concerned with how high the budget is because it was their idea to do the sinking fund. And I can't compute that too well. So
Mayor, on that same subject, if in fact we start going to leasing or paying on time, instead of paying for it now, the people that are benefiting from the use of that vehicle are the ones paying for it. Right now, if we buy the truck, and even though the money's there, and that seems to be the concern on the part of some of the council members, then let's buy it on time and let the people that are having the benefit of that truck pay for it. If there's reluctance to, not pay attention to what the chief has asked for, and she's the expert, she's came to us and said they need this truck, and I guess I'd like to have the chief respond to this. I would like to follow her recommendation. She's the expert.
What, you have a question?
Well, all I'm saying is, the argument that we're having is the sinking fund, and Councilman, Jimmy.
His name's Ward.
Or Carol.
Jimmy Carroll. That trying to have a sinking fund so that we have the money to pay for these things is one tack. Another tack is to get into a lease payment and spread it over the years. It's going to cost you more, but it's going to keep the budget down.
We're trying to get away from that. I think I agree with Councilman Carroll that the first couple of years are the most painful. Let's lessen the pain as much as we possibly can. We can't do every single thing that we want, and I just do not believe this is a lean budget. So let's have some compromise. If we're not going to compromise, we're just, we're not really doing our job to the citizens if we can't discuss these things.
We've been
Mr.
discussing
Mayor.
it for a better part of 4.5 months, so just don't, it's not like it's been new on the table here, so.
I don't have the sheet in front of me, but if I remember correctly, we have two major acquisitions next year
Correct.
in 2015. I think what we're saying is, let's put off one so that at least we're not impacted in the same year with two major acquisitions.
I think the chief would like to say something. Can you clarify the need for that truck once again?
Well, it's two parts. I was asked, can we get another year out of the truck? And I'm saying, yes, I believe we can. But the cost of that is going to be a minimum of 15% more. And if we put it off another year, we're talking about another 15%. Keep in mind, we have 2 ladder trucks and another fire truck that are coming up right behind this purchase. And they could all turn into 1 year if we're not careful.
This 50, you say 15 and another 15?
Every year.
Every January 1st, at a minimum 15%, that truck's going up.
Every January 1st.
That's not a number that I'm telling you. This is a number we're getting from the fire truck manufacturers.
Okay, let's go over these numbers again. In 99, we bought the truck for $144. Right?
You can't do that.
Why not?
The EPA, okay, first of all,
Used on the trucks.
Well, I'm
okay, no, let's go back. There was a jump. I believe it was 2009, and then again in 2010. We had your standard 15, 15, 15, 15, but then you had this EPA jump. And that's an Environmental Protection Agency. They had all kind of changes to the emissions. And then the following year, the 2009 truck that we have right now, we saw a significant jump in the cost of that truck, but in order to avoid another jump, we actually bought that truck a couple months early to avoid another about a $40,000 jump on top of the scheduled jump. Now, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, also has things they do every year, and these are part of what that jump is, but the EPA alone can exceed that 15% that's anticipated.
And so they're going to keep putting on more and more regulations every single year.
If you were to compare our truck,
15. Is this just started?
no, if you
When
want,
did it start?
I don't know when it started, but I know that there's been a significant change from the time the truck was purchased in 1999, even to the 2003 trucks. If you were to look at the trucks right now, you can see the differences between the 99, the 03, and the 09. There's significant changes.
So using the rule 72, you take the 15 divided into 72, and it's just under 5 years that vehicle will double in price.
We purchased engine 2, the new engine 1 was purchased in 2009, and that purchase was moved up a year specifically to avoid a major jump, not only by NFPA, but by EPA. And that was on top of the 15% that we already took into account.
So your prediction is, if we don't buy the truck in like 4.75 years, the truck will cost not $229,000, but $460,000.
The ladder trucks alone right now are well over $1 million. I believe we paid just over $5 for one and $750 for the other. A fire truck, a small ladder truck right now is running over $1 million, and a pumper is around $500,000, which I believe we paid $230 for. These are not my numbers. These are the numbers we get from the factory.
And they're going to continue to go up 15% a year.
It could change. It could go up 20%.
That's what the premise of the whole discussion is.
I know.
We started out 15% January 1, 15, 15% January 1, 16. I'm just trying to get to the number.
The number that we have to work with is 15%. It could go to 20, it could go to 10, but the number that we were given is 15%.
This coming year.
And then the next year.
Every year. This is a number that we were given by the manufacturers. Like I said, it could go up, it could go down, but that's the number we were given to work with.
It could go down.
It could go up.
It could go down.
A lot of it has to do with competition.
It has not yet gone down, but it could.
There's not much competition out there. I mean, so there are a lot of factors that play here, not just national standards.
Right, and the question is, could it go down? I suppose it could. It has not yet gone down. It could go up. I suppose it could come down, but 15% is the number we're given to work with.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Just one quick thing, Mr. Mayor. You know, I could say I kind of took lead on trying to put this savings sinking fund into play. You know, I come from the Dave Ramsey School of Thought. If you can't pay cash for it, you can't buy it. And I hate paying the bank extra tens of thousands of dollars every year in interest payments. And so instead of paying it in arrears, my idea was to pay it up front. Had we done this when I first started talking about it some 5 years ago, we probably wouldn't be in this situation right now. But the council has decided this last budget year to start utilizing this program. And like I said, the first few years are going to be a little more difficult. And I've been on this council long enough to make a few purchases. And I know we've bought stuff ahead of time to, to try and void some of the upfront costs of some of these large purchases, as like we do in the Public Works Department and in the Fire Department. But we do need to make cuts throughout, and changes throughout the budget. I'm not sure if this is one of them. I agree with Jimmy that we do need to make compromise, but to make a compromise, the savings that'll have maybe even a larger expenditure in the long run, I'm not sure if that's the right way. But as for gutting it and going back to a paid interest, I don't think is the right thing either.
Not as close as we are. We spent years paying off the prior leases.
Correct.
When we got the leases paid off, we started working with the sinking fund, and it granted this pain, but we're only in the second year, and we'll eventually move through that. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Could you repeat the motion?
To delete the...
Defer
the truck.
another year.
Another year. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Keep your hands up for the no's.
5.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're in the reconsideration period. Maybe here all night.
No one's going to compromise. Yeah,
Keep going,
so
keep plugging.
we want to talk about the...
Well, Barb brought up, you want to do lighting?
No, I want to hear what Jimmy's not done. He's put a lot of thought into this, and you deserve to listen to it.
Thank you. The $175,000 to set aside for planning the marina facilities, the city-owned parking lots and grounds down there. I'd like to make a motion, we defer that at least 1 year.
Second.
You want to defer it all? Stop all initiatives on the marina?
For a year.
No, I understand.
Well, but, yeah.
That's all, that's the motion. We got a tough couple of years coming up.
Okay, where,
Real Property has been dealing with this. We'll defer to the two members we have.
a question now, we have some commitments that we made for some of that money. Am I wrong, Linda? Or is that money just all sitting there with no commitments?
No, we don't have any commitments to we are finishing up with a small commitment with John Schaefer.
Right.
I think it's $1,750 is my recollection. But there is nothing else that's committed.
Right.
No contracts that are committed under the 75 from hospitality, 50 from state accommodations tax, and 50 from the Marina Fund towards the comprehensive master plan for marina enhancements.
I don't disagree with it, but my only concern would be that parking is a really, really big issue down there, and that's something they possibly could get something done within the next budget year. And now we're telling them, no, we're not going to do that. And parking, anyone who's been down there on a weekend or any time realizes that parking is a real problem. So we're putting off even trying to solve the problem. Can we cut that, and can we keep some money in that? Cut it in half or something, just so we can move forward. And then they might come to us with a solution, and we might have to do something that's not budgeted.
Good points, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Is that an amendment?
Well, you're amending?
Well, no, discussing.
Let me ask Ryan, you're on the Real Property. Is this...
Parking's an issue. I mean, not only throughout the rest of the island, but it definitely impacts, we hear it from the neighbors down there as well, and it's not only is a parking issue for those residents, but it's a safety issue down there because there's no parking 4 foot off the road down there as you're having Palm Boulevard. And it's something that we need to address and try to, that's for the amount of money that's going into it. That was based on the engineers and, could it be less? Probably, yeah. How much? I'm not sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Right now, we're considering 0. Jimmy?
The real property report earlier talked about, the Planning Commission and the real property working together on the marina. Just try to have a long-term vision on what we're going to do down there, and parking would be part of that.
Sure.
And since we don't have any exact plans for that money, that's as good a reason to defer something as opposed to the fire truck. Here's something that we don't, it's not life-threatening. We got neighbors who are upset the way the parking is going down there, and let's work with our planning commission on this.
Well, I'd be willing to defer it as long as this council would entertain an out-of-budget expenditure in the course of the work that the Planning Commission and the Real Property Committee come up with. If they come up with something that says we need to do this, we need to do it before the next season, and it's feasible to be done, that we consider that as an out-of-budget adjustment.
Did you say out-of-budget expense?
Mr. Mayor.
I just wondered.
That's the danger.
But we do have monies in the Marina Fund that was allocated for the replacement of the dock. And my understanding from the Real Property Committee was they were going to take the $100,000 as part of this 175 to combine it with what was already there. So there is money there that if, in fact, the plan comes forward...
That's what this is.
That's what this money is.
No, not the 175. That's in addition to...
There was a reservation, what you're speaking of is a reservation of fund balance that was requested by the committee in addition to this money.
So in addition to the 175, there is another reserve fund that if in fact some grand plan for parking comes about, those funds could be accessed, correct, Linda?
The money's there, for council, could make a decision to use it. It would be an out-of-budget expenditure. The other thing that I would just mention, just so that you guys are, kind of thinking it through, if in fact there's no money in the budget related to the comprehensive plan, efforts, there's really no ability, unless some of the marina tenants do it, there's no ability to continue to pay the consultants that have been involved to kind of work with the planning commissions. Once we exhaust the $1,750,000, which is we're probably pretty close at this point, then the planning commission will be working on its own without the benefit of the expertise of any except what they bring to the table, which I'm sure is comprehensive, but we sort of saw how that pattern worked without a consultant involved in the beach access parking, and we ended up having to get an engineer that's trained in traffic planning to work with them. So just the caution that the committee will have gotten an assignment, and they seemed in my experience in being in the meeting to be looking forward to having the benefit of some of that guidance, and lack of any money means that pretty much, their work continues, but the benefit of the consultants who've had a lot of experience with marine type projects, that would stop without some money to exist to continue that effort.
And Mr. Mayor, on that, I think there's some confusion in the fact that it's people think that the Planning Commission is now trying to work with the consultants to put something together. The Real Property Committee's been working on this for years, putting this together, trying to put a project together. It wasn't until the 11th hour is when the Planning Commission got brought in and for something, and I'm not sure, but what we tasked them with was to go work with the consultants to create an RFP for a multidisciplinary RFP, and that's what they're doing. They're not working to reconfigure and create a plan. They're working to create an RFP, not a design concept.
And that RFP would be what this 175
would go to help budget.
Continue to work with it.
Correct. The funds would be for the RFP, and then hopefully some parking alleviation down there.
Well, we have a motion to remove the entire 175,000. Is there an amendment to the motion to modify that to some other number?
I'll amend the motion to go to the original 75,000 that was in the budget for planning and reduce it from 175 to 75.
So we have an amendment to the motion. Do I have a second to the amendment?
I'll second that.
Motion amended.
It's fair compromise.
So what would that be?
It's going to go from 175 to 75.
But she had mentioned to the original 75. What was the original?
Originally in the budget, there was $75,000 for planning. Correct, Linda?
I believe that was some, I don't remember the exact language, but there was something like that.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, now we're at the primary motion. Any opposed? I thought I heard everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, just making sure.
Sorry, I'm going too fast. All right, now we have a motion to reduce the comprehensive master plan for marina enhancement to 75,000. I would assume that would be distributed in some way, shape, or form between Hospitality Estate and the Marina Fund.
50-50?
50% from the tourism funds and 50% from the Marina Fund? Okay. I'll make that as part of the motion, if Marie could catch that. All right, any other discussion on it? Please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, all right. Wow. We got one done.
Page 54, Marina Fund capital outlay and bond principal payments. Reduced the subtotal expense from 586 would be line 101, 586,000 to line 94, 430,000. The difference would be $156,000.
You better say that again.
Page 54, Marina Fund, capital outlay, and bond principal payments. Keep principal payments on 2 general obligation bonds, not including expense. Delete line 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, totaling $156,000.
And may I clarify, just so that everybody, that means that we're replacing the walk-in freezer, replacing the ice machine if it fails, replacing the HVAC in the store if it fails, replacing the store coolers if they fail, and replacing the fuel dispensers on the docks if they fail. Is that correct? I just wanted to
That is correct.
Okay.
So, what do you propose if they fail?
We did just.
Well,
it's a triple net lease. Everybody has heard about it. It's like outraged. Is that this one tenant, no other tenant in private industry on this island gets this kind of deal, to where the landlord's going to come in and replace all of their fixtures, the stuff that's going to stay in the store when they leave.
So you want to negotiate the whole lease?
I'm trying to save the city some money.
It would affect the revenue stream, because he's going to look and say, in order for him to take the obligation of replacing these, he's not going to be able to, I don't know, but I'm assuming he'll take the position he won't be able to compensate us under the existing law.
I'm sure we're better negotiators than that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Again, don't disagree, triple net lease thing, but it is his lease. So if we pull this out and the HVAC fails, is he going to sue the city because they're not fulfilling their, what they have signed? They've not fulfilled their lease.
You're right. You're exactly right. I'm just proposing we need to renegotiate the lease.
Yeah, I agree with that,
but that's already been decided.
Huh? His lease is up in January, right?
We passed it to the Real Property Committee to go renegotiate the lease.
Right.
With whatever amendments they can work out.
And this is the result of what Real Property came up with?
No, we haven't had a chance to
It
yet.
hasn't come out yet.
Then take it out.
So we're not tied to that.
So
Well, but it is in the existing lease.
I understand.
So if the HVAC goes out in August, and we're going to say, well, no, we're not doing it. If I were him, I'd be saying, wait, I got a lease, it says right here, that belongs to the city,
Right.
and you do it, or, I'm suing you. I agree with you, but I don't think this is the place to do it. I think the place to do it is in the...
Lease negotiation.
So are we saying going forward that this deal is going to, the tenant's going to keep this deal just going forever forward?
Well, no, that's what, well,
When can we change this?
right
We're
now.
we're going through lease
His
negotiations.
lease
When
is
is-
up in January. It's
It's
a 5-year
January
first.
January 1st, 2015.
Right.
Are we working towards that goal?
That's what got sent back to the Real Property Committee at Ways and Means.
I can give you my
Last
opinion as part of the committee.
I'd like to hear everyone's opinion, sure.
Again, having been in business also, I think the HVAC is the responsibility of the owner of the building. I think the ice machine is the responsibility of the guy who's leasing it. I think he walked into a situation where he rented an existing business, and the lease said that the city owns these assets, and that's where he's coming from. So I'm sure there are things he replaced that the city had done, and he's improved them. I mean, obviously, the store is much, much improved to what it was. So I think some of these things you could have a discussion about, but something, a built-in freezer, it's built in the building, I can't see that. I can't see the HV. The ice machine I can see. Replacement with store coolers, I'm not sure what they are, whether they're furniture or
We're
they're...
negotiating with ourselves here.
Yeah, I know, right. Well,
I'm just trying to get all the money on the table. We had performance Friday night at 5:30 with 83 degrees, and I called the landlord, and she laughed at me. She said, that's your problem. Why can't we do it like that?
That's your lease. Let them work to that point.
Are we going to this goal? Because if it's January 1st, we're only looking at half a year, correct?
Well, you can't assume how it's going to be concluded.
Well, I'd like to have some assurance that the city is working towards that.
Mr. Mayor?
absolutely.
Jimmy?
Our town attorney is here, and she's reviewed that lease. What is her opinion on this lease?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me right now. I did give a response on that, and I feel like, I would have to look at it before I give you an answer again. I have to have my, my sheet or my email in front of me, which I just don't have with me. But there are certain things that, I think we did a whole outline of everything that was the city's responsibility. And I think, I don't remember exactly if all of those items were on there or not. So I think that those were things that were up for discussion about whether the city wanted to go ahead and put on the list. But I don't know, I'd have to look at my notes again on this. But there are some things that I don't think that we're obligated to replace, that they are the city's property. And those things are listed as the city property in the lease. But the obligations of what the city will replace and what the tenant will replace is outlined, and I've given that advice. I've looked at all of the leases, and so they all are in my head at the same time. I would have to look at them again. I just can't remember.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
please.
if we take this out of the discussion of whether it's the cities or whether it's the lessees, if we look at it as a budgetary decision, can we not decide to delay these particular items for 1 year?
Well, most of them are here only with failure, so...
But it still impacts our budget. It's still in the budget as that amount. If we take it out and say...
It doesn't
okay,
affect anything unless we spend it, and we spend it only if it fails.
but we still look at it as that capital impact.
If the lease is negotiated, then even if it's in the budget, it doesn't mean we'll do it. It just is there. If the lease, if we're not successful in the type of renegotiation that you all are mentioning here, then then we have no placeholder in the budget if it fails. Just looking at these items, it would seem to me that the HVAC and the store coolers and the fuel dispensers on the dock would have if this is not cleared up and they fail tomorrow or July 1, would have a substantial impact potentially on revenues generated at the store, which, as you know, we get a percentage of that. So, I mean, one alternative would be to remove the ice machine and the non-functioning store walk-in freezer, because obviously it's non-functioning, it hasn't been being used, and leave those other 3 items until we can further work on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to withdraw the motion.
And I'll draw a second.
All right, motion.
With that, I'd like to make a note if possible. I hope that we will negotiate this upcoming lease to where these items are not included in the future. I don't think it's fair to the residents and taxpayers.
Okay. So noted. Thank you. All right.
I'll let somebody else talk. I'm tired of it.
Mr. Mayor, we were so consumed with time at our Ways and Means meeting, the white fence down at Front Beach got by me. I meant to bring it up, the $40,000 for a fence, and I look at the fence down there, and I'd like to make a motion that we pull the $40,000 for the white fence replacement for at least a year, and let's review having a fence in front of 2 private properties.
Tell me what page are you on?
It's listed on page 62, line 127.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't look at it. Look at it a million times. Yeah.
We do, I don't, okay.
That was a motion.
This came,
Second.
motion and seconded. This came out of, what, again, real property?
Yep.
Was this considered a safety issue? A beautification issue?
I think the fence is deteriorating. It's going to get worse. I think. I don't know, safety issue.
It's a steel fence which is rusting, and they're going to replace it with
I saw the pictures.
aluminum that has a longer lifespan. But the cost, I mean, the cost wasn't going to be, it was actually going to be somewhat less because of the, going from, it wasn't going to be $40,000, it was going to be less than, because of the moving from steel to aluminum.
Well, is the real property committee making a recommendation that we should endorse the motion?
We did, or else it wouldn't be in the budget.
Well, no, you endorsed the inclusion of $40,000. I'm saying you're endorsing Jimmy's motion to remove it.
I mean, it's the same thing. We have to have maintenance. You know, I mean, without lack of maintenance, it's like with our rec center. I mean, if we continue, I mean, we're painting, we're pressure washing, we're redoing the front of the rec center. It's a lack of maintenance is just
Eat your life. Cost you twice, 3 times
more in the long run. So.
Okay.
My question is, it's 270 feet of fence. It's in front of the parking lot, non-city owned parking lot, across from the Windjammer, and the Seaside condominiums. So, they're not city properties. We're putting fences in front of them. I don't quite understand that.
Just as a deal, but the fence is on city property.
Yes, correct.
I mean, just to be clear.
But, does it do anything?
Well, that was a design when they did the whole, whether we want to get
That was
into
approved
the
by
pros
the
and cons of the
Front Beach
thing. That's something else.
I was just trying to save money.
Right.
So we own property in front of the...
Well, it's the
right away.
We own it, or does the
city owns the...
the city owns the right of way, and not the state?
We had to take it over in order to do...
They wouldn't have allowed us to do the project without taking that.
Oh, yeah, that I remember that now. Yeah.
An alternative would be to remove those 2 sections from the estimate, the 125 feet and 170 feet. That
was the only spot.
They were the worst spots.
Those are the only ones.
Those are the only ones getting replaced, though.
Yeah.
Those are the only ones in.
Those are the only ones.
Well, then that's not an alternative.
No.
Hopefully.
Nice try.
I was trying to get your compromise.
I agree that we need to squeeze every nickel. I really do. But everyone knows that basically we're settled for this year and we're going to be in budget. And next year it's going to get worse. So then you're just pushing something that could possibly even cost more next year. into next year's budget. I just don't see the object of it except to be able to pound your chest and say, I saved $40,000 this year, and it's not really savings. So that, do I like the fence at all? Not really, but it wasn't my decision. Do we have to keep it up now that it's here?
Let me
Yeah,
ask
we do.
you I won't say a stupid question. Why don't we remove the fence in front of the,
That's what I'm saying.
you said
Well, you
remove
didn't say
it?
it.
You said remove it from the budget. I'm saying,
Remove it, yes.
You
just
said
go there.
push it
Just
off
get-
for-
we-
you said push it off. I'm saying.
Yeah, just physically get rid of it.
I'm not sure about the Seaside or Ocean Villas.
Because that's surrounding our parking lot.
That's a property issue.
But that's-
I don't know. I mean, I didn't know what you'd consider it. Obviously,
It wasn't discussed. I don't know if any of the vegetation is growing on the two sections or not. It was planted as part of the project.
I don't believe so, not in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You know, I mean, and that is the only spot that, like in front of that parking lot, is really the only spot in that area because it's lacking everywhere else.
here.
Yes. So,
All right. I didn't get,
I'm just removing that one spot at 170 foot. It's $100 a foot
wouldn't do us much.
is the cost.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to remove that, or defer that line item to future years. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I'm going to take it out. I'm for it. So it passes.
So
Is it
let me
tied?
just clarify.
Is it tied? No.
The $40,000 gets deferred.
Get third.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we recap what we've done so far?
Well, discussion.
140,000 savings.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, on page 55 and 56, where we're discussing special projects, and if I'm reading this correctly, we've got $76,000 and $50,000 for signs. And then on the next page, we've got $150,000 for access parking alternatives. I would like to see a reduction in that. I think that in order for us to get a plan in place and everything that we need, we certainly aren't going to spend $150,000 in FY15. On page 56, line 36.
Is that it? Have you made a motion yet?
She's making the
Oh, she's
motion.
making a motion, okay.
I'm seconding it.
What's the number?
I didn't make a number. Wait a minute. I'm saying that we've got $76,000 and $50,000 on page 55. And it says wayfinding sign plan design, and then the next one says implement phase 3 of construct and install. So am I reading this correctly, that $76,000 is just going to be for planning and designing, and $50,000 goes into installing them?
Correct.
Constructing and
Constructing,
installing.
Those two, line 19 is the FY15 estimate on the remaining parts of contracts already entered into. And then the line 20 is to actually be able to construct and install signs associated with wayfinding. The $150,000 that is a placeholder, which is line number 36 under FY15, is intended to be money that the city would use in order to implement whatever recommendation comes forward. I believe the next time Stantec is supposed to make a presentation to council is in August, and it's intended for there to be money there in order to move forward with the possible implementation of whatever council decides they would like to do based on Stantec's work. We do not know what it would take. It may be less than the $150,000. It may be more. I don't know, depending on what recommendation comes forward and what the city decides to do. But it's intended for there to be a source of money to be able to do something about the beach access parking problem if, in fact, a solution comes forward that you all feel that you can implement. Without a placeholder, there's no money in the budget to be able to implement anything.
And this moved forward from last year's budget, this $150,000.
Correct.
Right? So it's just been,
So just for the, so that in line 36, 150 is basically is for permits or whatever program we see to move forward with. Based on the conversations that we've had the last week or so about, taking some of this to vote and having discussion on that and having the people decide on taking over the roads as well is, if that were the case and be in November, that.
but this is just a placeholder.
I understand.
That might not pass, that referendum. It's not a slam dunk that everyone's going to think it's important to take over the roads.
Well, but even if you take over the roads, you could have some money. Eventually,
Right.
a bigger source of money to.
We'll have to have a start, putting some money aside, and we're moving to August and September.
My concern is, it looks like an empty shell if we're talking about doing something about parking, but we have no funds budgeted to do anything. Now, we can always do Jimmy's favorite thing, which is out of budget expenditure.
Love it.
Endangers you.
Right, it really does.
Well, even though
The
we
monies
don't.
would be
Right,
there.
right, exactly. And like I said, we have funds available, and if we have to do out of budget, but I agree. I'd like, if that was a motion, I'll amend.
I haven't heard the numbers, so
Well, I'm
can say-
waiting to see what the conversation is in terms of, it sounds like we don't know if we'll need 50,000 or 150,000 or
Or a half a million.
10,000 or a half a million. So, why does the placeholder have to be always at 150,000? We had it for 3
any
years.
number we want, but not.
Then I move that we reduce line 36 to $50,000.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Further discussion?
Jimmy, go ahead.
Let me just ask a question. Would this council consider an out-of-budget expenditure if we found that we needed more than $50,000 to implement a parking permits?
Can I ask a question on that one then? A question on top of your question? Because whatever we do with Stantec, if we go to an annual permit, whatever we do is supposed to be revenue neutral.
But the revenue comes in after we've had the
You
expense.
still got to have money to be able
You've got to be
to.
able to implement it, and then you
do
see.
it.
And you can pay yourself.
But my whole thing is that if we're looking to consider a referendum in November to take over the streets, then we wouldn't be compelled to have revenue neutral.
If it passes.
If it passes.
If it passes.
But we're not
But
spending
even
this money.
taking over
We're
the
just
streets
putting it
doesn't
as a
generate a
placeholder.
parking plan.
We're not, and I think that's right, we're not spending this money. We're not saying we're going to spend this money right now. We have to approve whatever expenditure comes up.
It's like a sinking fund.
Right, you could go through the budget and take everything that's with failure out of the budget, and you'd be in the same place. You're just playing Russian roulette. Oh gosh, the air conditioner went out at the wreck. Okay, well now we didn't have a placeholder for it, so now we have to come up with it. This is not money we're spending.
My question is, what's the difference between 50 and 150? Why does it have to be 150? But what basis are we putting
Actually, that's probably
$150,000?
very conservative. If we implement a sticker plan, even if we take over the roads, we're still going to have to allow some parking, I would assume. We may still want a sticker plan. It's going to cost money to do it. And nothing gets cheaper, does it?
If we take over the roads, then we need to create another $1 million a year sinking fund.
More than that.
Right. It can be any number we want. Just having nothing there and not being willing to consider an out-of-budget expenditure makes it seem rather empty.
I think taking it down to 50 is a little too drastic. Like I said, if you're at 100, I think it gives you a good point to be at. I'll amend to make it 100, and so we can vote on it. And
All right, I have an amendment.
Is it a second on the amendment?
Okay,
Second.
do I have a second? Amendment. Okay. We have an amendment to move line 36 from 150 to 100,000. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
All right, 1 no.
2 noes.
2 no. Excuse me. That was the amendment on the... Is a primary motion? No.
Now you got to vote on the motion as amended.
Motion as amended, okay. Reduce the, okay, fine. Marie will figure it out. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No, because I'm not sure what we just voted on.
Move it to $100,000.
Line 36 becomes $100,000 split among the 3 funds.
Was Marie able to get those nays?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yep. I don't see anything else. All right. We have a motion to reconsider. I'm going to make a motion to reconsider the budget as recently amended and presented in purple here. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
And seconded. All right. Any further discussion?
We got our work cut out for us next year.
Could we have a clarification of how what those changes are?
I will do my best.
Debbie's good.
140.
She's got them.
140 and 50, 190.
If my notes are complete, I have reduced the marine enhancement from initiative, the professional services related to that, from 175 to 100,000. And the new 100,000 will be funded 50% from hospitality tax and 50% from the marina fund itself. Remove completely the $40,000 of white fencing. I believe that's in the municipal accommodations tax fund. And reduce the placeholder for a potential parking management plan from 150 to 100,000, split 3 ways as the budget is currently split.
Okay.
Just to clarify, did you say the comprehensive master plan at 100,000?
I did say that. Was it supposed to be 75?
I had it at 75.
Oh, it's reduced it by 100.
Reduced by 100.
Yes.
Yes.
75 is the correct new number.
Okay. With those changes in the purple budget, all good?
Appreciate everybody at least listening to us, coming up with something. Next year's going to be tougher. It's going to be a lot tougher. And I'm going to be fighting tooth and nail for taxpayers, especially people on fixed income with the reassessment coming up. We can't be afforded raising taxes. We need to live within our means and stop spending more than we bring in.
All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. That motion carries. Back onto our agenda. We now have second reading of ordinance 2014-4, ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 1, business licenses. And I'll make a motion to approve and suspend the reading of the ordinance.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. You have before you an ordinance amending Title I, Government Administration, Chapter 3, Procedures Committees, Ordinances, Use of Code, Article 1, Rules and Procedures. Oh, I gotta get my file on this sucker. Regular meetings, City of Isle of Palms, change regular meeting times to 6 p.m. in the evening. That's first reading. We have to go to second reading, do we not?
We just need to have first reading.
First reading, all right. Well, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of first reading of ordinance 14-6? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And you have in your package, plus you've received a amended page, whatever, attachment at your place of ordinance by title only, ordinance 2014-7, ordinance authorizing the granting of a utility easement on a portion of the city property identified by the tax map number into the South Carolina Electric and Gas Company for conversion of power lines to underground facilities sometime in the future. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We have a proclamation. Can we approve and suspend the reading?
That would be fine. I would just, I will emphasize, never swim alone, never drink alcohol before swimming, respect the power of the surf, and learn to swim.
Okay.
First. Oh, learn first, swim first. Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Under miscellaneous business, last time we met, we considered changing our starting time for council meetings, and the question was, could we consolidate and do a better job of putting committee meetings together schedule-wise? And I solicited and received input from many of you, and this is the best I could put together, and we put it on a calendar here. All I'm going to say is that obviously if it's any particular month is in conflict with the chair or majority of the committee, they can move their time with the staff's concurrence. But this puts us in some sort of musical symmetry or something. The only one of note I want to call your attention to is September. In September, it's not we have Labor Day, the first of the month and all. I moved, and since we had 5 Tuesdays in the month, I moved council meeting to the last Tuesday, Ways and Means, to the next to the last Tuesday, and spaced everything else in accordingly so we could avoid the Labor Day week. But the others fall and are reasonably consistent, so. I leave it to the chairs to confirm with the staff if they want to stay with these or not, or we can discuss them now. But the city council meetings will begin at 6 o'clock, starting in July. So, okay? Everybody cool?
You mean it'd be an hour earlier than right now?
That's right.
Yeah. But hey, that doesn't mean the end time. But still go till your eyes get heavy. Next meeting is at 6 p.m. on July 22nd. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're out of here.